let's head west. That's still over the whole weekend. My favorite show was the Wild West Shootout over at the Arizona Speedway, and they actually raced Wednesday night, and then they raced Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as well. And on Wednesday, a little bit of drama there. We talked about drama over in Volusia, a little bit of drama on Wednesday night, actually in a couple different classes. So Jonathan Davenport, he got his second win, and he looked good. I mean, he was tough. I mean, he was really, really good on Wednesday night. But Squirrel and RTJ, and fans, you're gonna have to make the call on this one. Bert, I watched this probably 20 times, and I
Same
couldn't
here.
point like it was definitely his fault. You know, obviously all the RTJ fans were like, Squirrel's an idiot, and all the Squirrel fans are like, RTJ, drove into him and this and that and the other. Well, what happened is RTJ came in the corner and Brian Shirley slid him. It was an aggressive move. He slid him, and he slid him too hard. It looked to me like, bam, he kind of got up in the fence. He hit the brakes, and then as soon as he cleared him, Thornton hammers the gas, and it was rubber. And his car went straight. It didn't rotate, and he drove up on him, and they wrecked. And Ricky broke. He DNF'd, and I think a little bit later on, I think it was related to that. But Brian Shirley also DNF'd. I think it was related to that. But they had a little bit of controversy there. But I think at the end of the day, it's a racing deal. I mean, Bert, you weigh in. I mean, you saw it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how to put it other than a racing deal.
I told you the next day, it was a racing incident, and I would explain why on the show. But I think it was just a racing deal. I mean, you can argue that, maybe Shirley shouldn't have been throwing sliders like that early in the race, because I do believe it was fairly early in the race when it happened. But yeah, I mean, it looked like Shirley did the slider, and then the car pushed up all the way up to the wall. I mean, you could see that he was on the brakes. It looked like he locked up the tires because the car slid more than what he thought it was. And yeah, if you watch the video, there's a point in the video where Thornton's car just takes off. He's sliding, and all of a sudden it just lunges forward. And I don't think he was expecting Squirrel to be right in front of him. And you can see that Ricky locked up his brakes and also trying to avoid it, but it was too late at that point. Yeah, so,
I agree.
Overall, I think it was just a racing incident.
And that happens when you're racing hard up front. I mean, it's not like it wasn't a Bobby Pierce slider where he came up and just bashed in the side of him. I mean, it was I think you're right on. It was a racing deal.
I mean, he definitely cleared him. I mean, There is no doubt about that. It's just he had to almost come to a complete stop to once he completed the slider, and that's where the drama took place.
Exactly, and that's just part of it right there. That's going to happen with slide jobs, and that's what makes it exciting. Now the modifieds had a little bit of excitement too. Now Dustin Strand was bolted. He put on a show, and he gets to Tech, disqualified, and he was the reigning Wild West Shootout modified champion, and he would have been solidly in the point lead after that night. And Bert, what he got disqualified for is he had a right front brake shut off. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with all that or not, and I don't know if he had an electronic one or if he just had a valve, but whatever. So you got your master cylinders, brake fluid goes down to the 4 calipers, and there's you can shut it off so that you're not putting any pressure on the right front brake. So that way, when you hit the brake, the car will turn because the left front pulls it to the infield. Okay. Now, in Wissota, that's perfectly legal. Most cars have that or come with it, or at least they did. And it's really it's a good tool. You can have your car a little tighter. You can hold the brake, and you can kind of hold the car to keep it rotating. Or if you get on a heavy track and the car's not turning, you can use some brake to get the car to pull down. So it's a nice tool to have. In all my years of racing, I had one in the car, but I probably used it less than 10 times. I talked to Dustin on that, and he said it was in the car. He goes, I have it. He goes, but the track was dry. It actually took a little rubber coming off, but it was pretty slippery getting in. He goes, I never used it. I didn't need it. He goes, but it was in there. He goes, so they disqualified him. And, it's one of those deals where I looked in the rules. It said USRA rules. It said that in there, and specifically in the USRA rules, it says no right front brake shut off. Must have. So I mean, it's a rule. It's a rule's a rule. But man, there's a lot of Wissota cars that went down there that had a right front shut off in. So I don't know if somebody maybe turned them in, because it's not something that normally somebody would be looking for. They're not typically looking in your cockpit going, do they got a right front shut off? I don't know if somebody turned them in or what happened, but it was a rough break for Strand. I mean, it wasn't like he won and was cheating. It wasn't like that. So if people are wondering that, well, hey, he had an unfair advantage, definitely not the case. It was a simple oversight, and they allowed him to come back, of course, for the Friday show, but that basically ended any chance he had at winning the points again. So kind of a tough deal there for Strand.
Well, then, I have a question for you then.
Sure.
Okay, so he had that shut off in his car, but then he was allowed to race later. I mean, how do you take the shut off out, or do you just disable it and the officials know it's?
You bypass it, yeah.
Okay.
Because there's an inlet and an outlet for the brake line, right? So then all you got to do is splice the brake lines together to bypass the shut off. So that's what he had to do there, and tough break. I mean, he was pretty bummed out. I mean, obviously so. I mean, that would have been his second win of the weekend, and he was looking really good down there. And then in the X mods, one of his customers, I believe, in a Millennium chassis, I think I shouldn't say that because I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure. Preston Carr, and Bert, this is a guy I wasn't familiar with him at all. Like I guess I didn't pay attention to the B mods over in North Dakota very much, right? And boy, he looked really good over the whole series. He won on Wednesday night. Now let's get to Friday. And Wednesday night, Bert, if you remember, the track was dry and crumbly. It took rubber. It wasn't overly racy. It just wasn't very good. But Friday night, oh my God, that late model feature was amazing. I mean, they watered the track. So this stuff here, okay, this is water. Okay, so if you're a track prep person, Bert's got it there too. You can do multiple things with it, right? You can drink it. Okay, you can do that. You can consume it. Okay, but also I heard. I've been to a lot of races that if you take the track and you kind of loosen up the gravel and the clay and the dirt and all the material, and then you apply this, I guess, H2O water type substance on it, it actually like makes it stickier, gives it traction. Kind of a cool deal. Not all tracks do that. But they didn't do that every night at the Wild West. But Bert, when they did, holy shit, was the racing good. That might have been one of the better races that I've seen in a late model in a long time. And we saw some good ones at Fairbury, who incidentally, they watered the track, right? And I mean, you're talking RTJ, who podium finish every night except for one, him and Turbo chucking sliders and throwing elbows. That was fun. What was your thoughts of that late model race, Bert?
Well, my initial thought after watching it was Turbo has no fear. I mean, he is not afraid to put that car. I mean, if the car is 8 feet wide and there's a 7-foot space, he's going to put it in there. I mean, he's going to make it work. I mean, there was one point in the race coming off a 2. I can't remember who was in front of him, but he threaded the needle and went between the two of them down the backstretch to get in front of both of them. And yeah, he just has no fear. I mean, but
you put traction on the track. He is fun to watch. I mean,
yes. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's like Bobby Pierce. In fact, I honestly watching them too, I think he's better than Bobby. I think he's a little better than Bobby. But I'm here to tell you that first of all, nobody wants to watch that dry, slick, boring. No, I mean, that's just dumb. Nobody wants to watch that. We all want to watch everybody race, right? And I'm talking, I got friends of mine that are racers that are like, oh man, I love it smooth and dry. And they do. They love it. They're good on that stuff. Everybody was talking about the late model feature on Friday. So what does that tell you, right? If you're a track promoter, right, and you're like, well, the drivers want it dry. I want you to just pay close attention to what happened on Friday night and the excitement and all people talking about it. You want that. That's what you want. You want people talking about how amazing the racing is at your facility, and you don't get that on dry, slick tracks. You just don't. And you get that when there's got to be some traction, slide jobs, moving around. I mean, it was insane. And yeah, I tell you, Turbo got the win there. And I think the driver of the night, I'm going to give the driver of the night that night to the water truck guy. Congratulations. We should send him an award is what we should do. But that they talked about it. They were raving. I looked on Facebook, Bert. It was crazy. The people, I mean, they talked about it all night and all the next day about how amazing that late model feature was. And if you're a track promoter, guys, and gals, that is so important. Water the track. We want to be entertained. It's not that difficult. Get some moisture in it. Let's make it happen. And when they did that, I tell you, it was good stuff. And in the modifieds, a guy that's really good on that, Bert, we watched him a little bit this past year at the Casino Speedway in Watertown, South Dakota, which is another awesome little bull ring. The one TPO of Tyler Peterson, he was throwing it up on the high side. He looked good. And he had a heck of a race there. Got the lead late. The guy that he passed, actually, I think he ended up spinning out after that. But Tyler Peterson charged. I mean, he looked really good Friday night. And the X-Mods, Bert, it was like the Battle Royale. It reminded me of that race in Plymouth last year, the Dirt Kings race, where it was just like shredding everybody. And a guy by the name of Lance Schill, he's another North Dakota guy. He come down and he gained the victory. But he didn't gain any friends. I can tell you that much, right? He gained 0 friends, 0, because there was a time in the middle of the back straightaway, and from what I understand, these guys don't even like each other. They race against each other. Jory Berg, who had a win up there, he dumped him, right in the middle of the back straightaway, and Berg, with good awareness, realized, hey, it's a no-fault rule here. I can't stop. See, at a Wissota track, when that happened, if Berg would have just stopped, boom, Berg gets his spot back, Schill goes to the back. Schill would never have won that race. Well, Berg realized that, hey, if I stop, I'm going to the back. He's getting his spot back anyway. So he did a 360 when he got spun out, kept going, lost some spots. He never regained a podium position, I don't believe, after that. But Schill might have been, he was kind of driving a little bit like that Bobby Pierce, Tyler Erb chucking elbows and sliders and banging off people. And, I guess a win is a win is a win, but, you got to race against these people at home, and they might remember that, okay? Because there was another guy, I think he actually got into it with Preston Carr in that same race. So it'll be interesting when they get back home. Racers seem to have a good memory, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the wrong end of something come this summer. So that's it there on Friday night. Now we still have 2 more nights of racing to go. Saturday night, okay, they did the same thing they did Friday night. They farmed it heavily right before the features. Good job, whoever's in charge, Ben Shelton. If you made that call, thumbs up, because the racing was not good during the heat races. In fact, Jonathan Davenport, I don't know if you saw him after the heat race. He said the track sucked, or I don't exactly.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he basically said, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exact words, but he said the track is really shitty and the fans deserve better. The track was pretty dry and marbly in the heat races, but he gave one away there in the feature. He really should have won that, but he kind of bobbled there in lap traffic, and Turbo got by him, and Turbo's kind of track again, banging the cushion and hustling, and Turbo back-to-back wins, sneaking one out over JD, and that put both of them in position to possibly be, get a third win in that Kaiser bonus, and that completely took away any chance of JD getting a $25,000 bonus. So a pretty entertaining race there. What did you talk about Saturday? I'll touch just on the results for the other 2 classes, but what did you see on Saturday?
Well, like you said, JD probably gave that race away. You don't see that too often, and he admitted it in the interview afterwards, and even in the interview after Sunday night. I won't go into too much. I'll save that for Sunday night's results. But Davenport was in his interviews, he was very open about some things at the Wild West Shootout, and some of it I'll get to when we talk about our takeaways from the entire week regarding some of the things that he said in his interviews.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We'll get to that quickly. On Saturday night in the Mods, Rodney Sanders, he picked up another win. The one TPO, Tyler Peterson, he got second. Dustin Strand got third. So a couple Wasota guys right up there in the top three in the X Mods. Preston Carr got it done again. Now, rolling into Saturday.
Well, actually, before we get that far, I didn't watch. Other than the late models, I didn't watch Saturdays. Now, entering Saturday, Sobraski was leading in points, wasn't he? What happened to him?
In both. He was leading the mods and the X mods. In the mods, I think he just started deep. In the X mods, he ended up, I think he spun out in the B main. He started deep in both of them, and he didn't make the show in the X mod on that Saturday show. He started too deep. He just kind of got into trouble. I think he had some kind of a altercation. I don't exactly remember what happened, but needless to say, he didn't make it in. And in the mods, he kind of, I don't know if he DNF'd or what in the mods, but Saturday was not good to the 7A. It just was not good to Shane Sobraski. And like you said, he went into Saturday leading both of them in the points with a legitimate shot, and it was one of those deals where racing can be awfully humbling, and Shane's a super humble guy. He really is. But it's that's a prime example. You can be kind of sitting there on top of the world, and all of a sudden the next night they kick your feet out from underneath you, and that's really what happened to Shane there on Saturday. So Sunday, right? I'll start with the lower classes and work up in the X mods. Sobraski got her done, right? Now, similar to maybe not quite similar, but a little bit of controversy in that one. He actually got together. This was win 707, and they did a good job. We'll talk about that in a second. But he got together. He was rolling the top of 3 and 4, and the bottom of 1 and 2 was the place to be. And he got a good run off of 4 on Preston Carr. And looking to me watching it, he shut the door on him. I think he figured he had more room than he did, because Shane's a pretty clean driver. I've watched him race a lot of races. He's not a banger. He's just not, and he shut the door on him, and it was tight. I think he was enough clear, but he wowed up, and Carr was coming in a little harder, and Shane kind of got down into him. Carr ends up going around in second place. And obviously the no-fault caution. Caution comes out. Carr to the back. Shane gets the lead back. Jason Vandekamp, who had a horrible week. I mean, literally, dude, he had his truck or motorhome or whatever he's hauling now broke into on the way down there, right? Smashed a window out of it. I mean, it started out, it was a nightmare. He said he had a pile of parts as big as a car, and he got second in that deal. Actually had a really good run, down the back straightaway on the final lap. He missed his mark getting into 3. Otherwise, he was pretty close at the line with Shane. But Sobraski even said in victory lane, he's like, man, if I chopped him, I apologize. I know Shane well enough that he's pretty humble and sincere with that. But Carr had a big enough point lead that he won the series in the X mods. And I didn't even know this guy. And again, he's in our area, in our region, but being that they're out west, I didn't pay much attention, but I'm going to probably pay more attention to him this year, because he was darn impressive down there, Bert. I'm telling you, he was extremely fast. And a guy by the name of Jory Berg, he looked really good too. And they were both North Dakota mod or Midwest mod guys, so it's gonna be pretty fun to watch them. Did you watch the X mod feature there on Sunday night?
I actually watched it today. I went and watched the replay. Yep. On Flow. And
what was your thoughts there with the deal with Sobraski at the end? I mean,
I agree with you. I mean, and it's kind of like what he said in his interview. I mean, he knew that the bottom in 1 and 2 was the place to be. So when he got the run on the high side in 3 and 4, he had to clear him and get down right away. And I think he did think that he had cleared him. So, and I mean, even if there wasn't a no fault rule, I don't know if they would blame that on him just based on, it's hard to blame the car that's in front.
That would have been a tough call. It really would have. As a driver, I kind of know what happens there. I probably would have called it on Shane just because he did the lane change down in front of him. Was it deliberate? No. I mean, he deliberately moved down. He did that, but I don't think he meant to get into him. But That would have been a tough call. I mean, it really would have been. But it's one of those racing deals. Carr was like, well, fortunately, he had a big enough lead where he won the points. So congratulations to him. In the modifieds, Rodney Sanders, he was a series champion. Strand maybe would have won that deal. Maybe if he wouldn't have got,
who picked Rodney Sanders to win the series?
You may have done that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And Jake O'Neill. Okay, he's another USMTS guy. I don't know what he was doing or if he had. I don't know, but he literally just showed up on Sunday. So he didn't race the whole rest of the week or the whole rest of the time down there. He shows up on Sunday just out of the blue and gives them an absolute ass kicking. I mean, he won by a straightaway. I mean, he just made everybody look silly. What would have happened if you would have been there the whole time? I don't know, right? I mean, in 6 races, things can happen, but he was absolutely dominant. And Tyler Peterson got second in that deal, and third was Sanders. Now, Bert, let's get to the late models. Coming into the late model feature, you had Jonathan Davenport with 2 wins. You had Tyler Erb with 2 wins. In the way the Kaiser bonus, they had a Kaiser $250,000. So for fans out there, the Kaiser Manufacturing, they put up $250,000 to any late model driver if they won all 6 nights. If they won 5 of 6 nights, they give you $100,000. If you win 4 of 6 nights, you got a $25,000 bonus. And the first driver to win 3 of the nights got a $10,000 bonus. So going into that night, Shaw Trucking, and there was another sponsor, but I remember Shaw because Don Shaw is one of our guys, right? Don Shaw threw up some money. It was $25,000 to win for everybody except for Tyler Erb and Jonathan Davenport. For them, it was $35,000 to win. Bert, what happened in that one?
JD was the first one to get the 3 victories because he won the first race of the series. He won the last race of the series and won in the middle somewhere. He got the $10,000 bonus, plus he got the bonus for the series championship. So he had, and plus the $25,000 to win the race in the final race. So he got a pretty good little chunk of money there at the end. And, like you mentioned earlier, I think this week of racing was a week for him to prove to himself that he could. I mean, and it's funny, and we've discussed this on the show. It's funny we're talking about, he's got all this stuff to prove. I mean, he didn't have that bad of a year, but when you're talking about Superman, it wasn't that great of a year. So I think he was on a mission this week to prove to himself and to others that, he is a force to be reckoned with again this year.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Because obviously, I mean, he was the story of the night. I mean, not only did he win that final night, he put a beat down on him. I mean, there was no question. Tyler Erb, he came through. He
hung around
reasonably close at the end. But when Davenport put his foot on the gas after getting through lap traffic, I mean, he just drove away. He had the dominant car in that one. I think RTJ got third in that deal. So kind of them same 3 ran up front. They really dominated the whole weekend between Davenport,
right,
Thornton, and Tyler Erb. They were the story of the late models the whole weekend. But you talked a little bit about Davenport and his interviews and kind of, some of that, what did you take out of that? Because you're right. I mean, he was pretty open. He was pretty honest about, kind of his mindset and some things there.
Well, I mean, in Victory Lane after winning last night, I mean, he made the comment that in the winter, I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he wasn't even looking forward to going to the shop because he just didn't have that fire. And then he said that they decided to switch shock companies. I did notice that. He's got that plastered all over his car, and that's different than it was last year. And then I believe that they built some new chassis also over the winter. And doing that, he said that kind of re-energized him and really got him looking forward to the season. And I think after the week that he had, he's been re-energized. One thing I want to go back to the race that he gave away. That race, Tyler Erb led for a good portion of that race. And JD, in his interview after the race, said early in the race, he was just going half throttle because he just didn't want to use up his equipment. And then when it was time to go, he went and he took the lead, but then, he kind of gave it away at the end. So, he proved that he can turn it on when he needs to turn it on.
Yeah, and really got into a lot of traffic. And I think what cost him is you could tell he was more conservative, right? He was kind of conservative around lap cars, where Tyler Erb, he's bold. He don't care. He's going to chuck a slider. He'll go 3 wide on 2 lappers. He don't care. He's doing whatever he has to do. And that might be the difference, though, too, in a couple wins. Maybe Erb will steal a couple from him that way. But if you look at the whole body of work, I think that's also the reason why JD's got some championships, because he's a little smarter when it comes to that. He's probably had time back in the past where he was bold and put himself in bad situations, but he realizes, hey, you can't be, you can go out there and you can make 30 grand, but if you cost 30 grand to fix a car, he's a little smarter than that. He's got a few more years of experience underneath his belt. And racing is one of those things, Bert, any sport, right? If you're playing in basketball, I know we got fans in here that are basketball fans. A team's they're going on a run, they got all kinds of momentum. If you're the opposite coach, what do?
Call it timeout.
You call a timeout because you want to break that chain of momentum, right? And that momentum is all based when you got momentum going, confidence is there. If you have a lot of confidence when you're racing, you're going to do things behind the wheel of that car that you ain't going to do when you're not confident. That's going to put you in a better position to win. And I mentioned this last year, just watching Davenport, you could tell he was not putting the car in areas to where it's like you've seen him do it before. You could tell he was driving without that it factor, without that confidence. And the question I have for you, Bert, is, coming down to the Wild West, and there was a stacked field of cars there. Was it the whole Lucas Oil contingent? No, it was not. But there was some very good race cars there, and there was a bunch of them. And he was clearly the dominant guy the whole time, right? He was the guy. Is he going to be able to take that? And what kind of confidence will that give him? And is he going to be able to carry that over in the speed weeks when he heads over to Florida?
I think so. He's got experience as, winning championships. So, he just needs to regain his momentum. And, the week that he had down in Arizona should help him a lot with that.
I totally agree. Now, we got a couple races coming up here I'm excited about. But before we do that, what are some takeaways that you have from the Wild West Tour?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about our area late model drivers who went there. We've given Mitch McGrath some grief on this show, because of what happened at Plymouth last year, and but he went down to Arizona this week, and I think he did himself proud down there. He won the non-qualifiers dash twice. You may not think that's a big deal, but for a local driver, that's a big deal, competing against these drivers. And he gave up the money one time, took the money another. He learned by the end of the trip that that $1,000 is nice to have in your pocket. But he also made some features, and he ran the top 10, I think, most of the race on Sunday night in the feature, I believe. So I think that was a good trip for him. And then Dustin Sorenson and Jake Tim also made the trip, and they had kind of up and down weeks. But Sorenson did win a heat race. He made some features. Tim made at least one feature, if not more than that. So, it's great experience for those. They're still really young. So, Ben Shelton had great things to say about Jake Kim. So
right. They're going to be fun to watch. I mean, they really don't have either one of those two guys. They really don't have many nights in a late model, right?
Right, exactly.
Because their home tracks don't even have them. So they got to race specials when they got them. And both of them are talented young drivers. It's going to be fun to watch them progress. Jimmy Mars, I would say he's our most talented local driver that went down there. He kind of had, in my opinion, a pretty rough week. I think he was probably looking for a little bit better results than what he got. Just the eye test, Bert, there, me watching Jimmy, it looked like the car just didn't get off the corner, right? It looked like he could get in and through the middle, but to me, it looked like he was lacking forward drive. I'm not sure if they were trying something, but he was just off a little bit. And he had some good heats. He had some pretty decent starting spots, but he just – I expected to see maybe a podium or two out of him, and he just never really – he was just a step off them guys. And, so looking to see if maybe he can rebound on that. And maybe he needed to call up Dillard, because Dillard looked really good in that NB Custom. Maybe he needs to call up Cade and say, all right, dude, like what do I need to change on my stuff? So kind of interesting there with Jimmy Mars. Like I talked about, JD was dominant. Ricky Thornton Jr., I mentioned it earlier. It's going to be a hell of a year watching him and Strickler battle it out for that Lucas Oil deal. So that's in the late models. In the modifieds there, Bert, Tyler Peterson is a guy that impressed me. I mean, Strand ran good and Shane ran good, right? But Tyler Peterson, he ended the weekend with a first, a second, and a second, right? 3 podium finishes. And that's an impressive field of cars they had darn near. I think they had over 70 a couple nights. So Tyler Peterson, really fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch him again this year. One thing that I also took out of it, and I want your opinion, and I'm going to give you mine right now. The no-fault caution rule absolutely sucks. It is absolutely ridiculous. What is your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you. I just don't like it either, because, you can cause a wreck, but if you don't stop on the track, you're going to keep going, where the innocent driver is going to be penalized.
Yeah, it makes no sense. The only one benefit, okay, there is one benefit. So I'm gonna flip it to that side. The one benefit is if you race against those guys that park it the minute you bump them, and they try to have that fake caution like the soccer flop deal, they're screwing themselves because they're going to the back. So it eliminates that, which is good, okay? That's a positive to it. But, man, there was a lot of stuff that happened down there over them 6 nights of racing, Bert, where it was obvious. I mean, literally, Stevie Wonder could have been like, well, that guy caused this deal. In my mind, if it's that obvious, right, why not make a call? If it's a questionable deal, all right, hey, that guy goes to the back. We couldn't make a call because we couldn't decipher like whose fault it was, okay? Or put them both to the back. But is it that difficult? Get it right. Come on. Can you imagine in the NFL? We've seen bad calls. I get bad calls are going to happen. There's a human element to this. I get it. That's just the way it is. But can you imagine in the NFL if they're running down the field, right? And the guy's going up to catch the touchdown to put him into the Super Bowl, and right before the ball comes there, they tackle the guy, and not even close, and they say, well, he fell, no call. Oh, wait, they did that. They already did that, right? Wasn't that the Rams versus the Saints? Yeah. And the whole country went absolutely bonkers. As a Vikings fan, I'm like, that's karma for the Bounty Gate deal. I get it. Right? But the fact is, that just pisses people off. It's not good for the sport. They even changed rules after that. Well,
and then they changed them back though, because they didn't want to. They didn't want to make those calls.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You got to make a call. There's no reason. Like I said, and here's what's even worse, Bert. Okay, this is my opinion. I've seen this happen. So up at the Gondik Law Speedway this year, they had video there, right? Okay, and then they used multiple streaming. Dirt Race Central was there. Barry from XR was there. So they had multiple streamings, okay? And I know for a fact, because I talked to Joe Staria, that there was a couple instances where they had enough of a break. They weren't delaying the program to make the call, but there would be an altercation that happened. And they'd be like, well, I tell you what, while we're waiting here, we don't have a call made. Did you catch it on video? And they'd look at the video and they'd be like, oh, wow, that's obvious. That guy to the back. The tools are there. Use them. Don't go with the no-fault deal. I mean, you think about the World of Outlaws and Lucas Oil, they got that no-fault. World of Outlaws Sprints, no-fault, right? They all got the no-fault deal. Every one of them is streamed every single race, and some of them have multiple camera angles, right? It is not that difficult. It is extremely easy for them to make the right call. I mean, there's nothing as a racer, I can tell you, like, I was a little bit hot-headed back in the day. And if I would have been racing for a championship and all of a sudden somebody dumped me on the last lap, right? And it was a no-fault deal and I get put to the back and that guy gets his spot back and wins the championship, I would have probably burnt his garage down, all right? Like, literally, I would have went mental. There's no reason to do that. And you think back to that Tyler Erb, Bobby Pierce deal at Cedar Lake, that deal never happens if there's not a no-fault rule, right? Because if Turbo would have got his spot back, which he should have, right? If a call would have been made, is it fair to say that Bobby Pierce caused that? Tyler Erb would have got his spot back if they would have been making a call on it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, if they made the right call, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if they made the right call and Turbo gets his spot back, is Turbo going the wrong way on the track and driving up on Bobby Pierce's nose?
No.
Is he getting kicked out of the World of Outlaws indefinitely? That ain't happening. So whose fault was that whole deal? It was the World of Outlaws' fault for having stupid rules in place, right? So when racers are volatile, they're competitive. You put a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of energy and a lot of heart into succeeding. And when you get blatantly taken out, right, whether the guy meant to do it or not, because some of the incidences, it was probably a racing deal, but the guy clearly caused it. Just make a call. They got to get rid of that stupid rule. I'm so sick of it. They can't. I don't even know why they have it. It just simply doesn't even make sense. I don't know what their justification for is. Do you have any insight on that?
I don't have any insight, but I think part of the reason that some tracks and organizations use that rule is kind of what you discussed, is they don't want to have to make that call. They would rather just say, you know, it's obvious you came to a stop on the track, you go to the back. You know, they don't want to create controversy by making the call, but they're creating controversy by not making the call.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But in my opinion, I've seen enough stuff happen to where it was such an obvious call, right? So obvious that it just doesn't sit well with me. Any other takeaways? I got one last takeaway, but I'll leave that for last. Any other takeaways from the Wild West shootout down there in Arizona?
I can't remember his first name, but I believe he's an X-Mod driver, Iverson. I heard his name a lot over the week.
He was in an A-Mod. Yeah, he ran good.
Or A-Mod.
Yeah.
Okay.
Calvin Iverson. He's another young guy, Bert, that runs like Mississippi Thunder, Deer Creek. You kind of runs around that area. And he was pretty racy down there. He was fun to watch. You're absolutely right. And I know I think it's Iverson Trucking. I think they're sponsoring the opener at the Mississippi Thunder. I know they sponsor the track down there.
Was it? I should have looked this up. Was it his car that won the best graphics? I know.
I don't know. I don't have that.
I know. David Hooker from up by Superior designed the car.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah. He designed the winning scheme of the winning car. I can't remember if it's Iverson or a different driver.
I'll have to look that up, and we'll post that on the Facebook page. What we'll have to do is we'll have to get the pictures of that, post that up, because that was kind of a cool deal. And fans, what they're talking about is for the Wild West, they had a deal where if you had a Western-themed wrap, right, they had basically a not necessarily a car show, but they had a best appearing Western-themed wrap. And I don't remember what the award was for that. Wasn't there X amount of money? Did the wrap person make money too, or just the driver, or how'd that work?
I'm not sure. I should have looked that up too. This just came into my mind as we were discussing takeaways from the week.
But that's just another example of this whole show, right? Ben Shelton. Now, I say this all the time, okay? I say I think that somebody that's a promoter with racing background is going to do a better job. Ben doesn't have a racing background, but he did a hell of a job, okay? They had record car counts. They adapted over they had the first few nights wasn't real racy, so they made some changes to get the track to where it was racier the rest of the way through. They had a lot of neat stuff like that Western themed rat deal. They had, they had the bull, they had the sheriff down there that was the
guns blazing.
They had the guns blazing. I mean, they really did a great job with that show. And that leads me to my final two takeaways. And takeaway number one, Bert, is drivers simply do not care about money. And if you're a driver listening to this and you're disagreeing with me, you're full of shit. Okay. Why do I know that? Because I was a driver. Okay. And I know. Now, yes, we like a big payday. You give me 10 grand to win over 500 to win, I'm going to be way more pumped. I promise. I get it. Right. But this, Bert, might have been one of the worst paying shows that I've ever seen. I mean, it was horrible. Right. I mean, it was not a good paying event. But why on earth would they pay more? Right? I was thinking about that. I was having this conversation with my buddy Pete and Keith and Jeff, our helpers there. And it's like, why would they pay more? They already have all the cars they need for a very quality, entertaining show. They don't need any more cars. They had plenty of cars. Can you imagine if they had 100 more cars? It would have been 2 more hours. That wouldn't have been good.
Well, and the track wouldn't have held up.
There's no way.
They would have had to kept. I mean, because even they worked the track up, and the late models were the first feature, and by the end of the 40 or 50 laps, whatever it was, I mean, the track was already black from top to bottom.
It was. So you're exactly right. They would have had to farm it at least one more time, so they can't have any more cars, right? So they look at it and they're like, we don't need to pay any more money. We got all the fans, all the cars that we need. We don't need any more. In fact, more in that situation would, as we just talked about, would likely be worse. Okay. Now, they had, I don't know if you saw this, but in the modifieds, they had 30 car, 12 lap B mains. Really?
No, I didn't see that.
Really? I'm like, are you serious? And as a driver, right, I'm going mental. I'm talking to my buddy Krause, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. What are they doing? This is ridiculous. And at the end of the day, drivers will bitch and continue to come back, right? So why? Why is that? And that leads me to my final takeaway. See, I'm from Chisholm, Minnesota, Field of Dreams. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's a classic. If you build it, they will come, right? And what I'm talking about in racing is atmosphere, right? See, drivers didn't go to that show. No, Davenport did, because he's like, I'm coming down here for the bonus. There was $250,000 on the line if he won all 6. He had his sights set on that. Totally different deal, okay? Other than that, drivers didn't go. There ain't one modified or Midwest modified driver, Bert, that went to Arizona looking for a big payday. None of them. 0, right? They went down there for a couple reasons. Number one is there's no other shows going on. It was a nice midwinter break for all the northern folks. And if you look at the mods and Midwest mods, not quite half, but probably half were from the upper Midwest, whether it was the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, right? Half of the Midwest mods and mod guys were from the upper Midwest that are like, it's cold up here. We're going to Arizona. We're going to have a blast. And the way they put that schedule of events together, genius, absolutely genius, right? And what do I mean by that? So they race Saturday, Sunday. They take Monday, Tuesday off. They race Wednesday. They take Thursday off. They race Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a vacation. See, when I went racing speed weeks in Florida, Bert, I went down there. I ran Ocala, Volusia, East Bay, went up to Milton. Out of that whole stretch, almost a month, right? Like 3 weeks or something like that, close to a month. There was only like 2 or 3 off days total, right? It was work. It was work. I mean, I might as well been at a racetrack in Minnesota as to Florida, because I never went and did anything outside of racing. I didn't go to the beach, or I didn't go do anything touristy at all, right? So going down there with a family to the Florida deal, they better like racing, because you're not going to do anything with them other than race, okay? At the Arizona deal, I saw so many things, Bert, that people were out having a good time, and they were, going to the sand dunes, or going, they were skydiving. They did all kinds of stuff. The way that they formatted that, that's why that show is so successful. It's not the money. And racers, I'm going to be honest, okay? I don't want to hear, if you went to that show, and I have a list, okay, of the drivers that went to that show, and I hear you saying all summer long, well, that show don't pay enough, I ain't going there, I'm calling you out, all right? I'm calling you out, because it was horrible pay down there. Bert, it was, for the modifieds, it was $100, okay, all the way up to like 9th place, I think it was. And you must have a phone call there. Let me take a look here. Okay, so I'm pulling this up, Bert. It was 100. So for the modifieds, for the bulk of the shows, 11th back was $100. Okay. It was $40 to get in, and a $50 draw fee. So from 11th to 24th, you made $10. $10. Okay. In the X mods, it was a $25 entry fee and a $40 pit pass. So $65. 11th back. I want you to guess, Bert. 11th back, what did it pay?
$75.
60. You lost $5. 60. So they paid you less than you paid to get in, even if you made the feature. Okay. Now, again, right? I ain't gonna call out Ben Shelton for that, because he's like, why should I pay more? Why? They made a ton of money at this deal. Hats off to them. Tip of the cap. Capitalism at its best. But why would they pay more? Drivers are going to continue to go to that show, not looking for a payday. They're simply writing it off as a vacation where they get to race. And as a driver, that made my blood boil. It just pissed me off beyond all recognition. But on the promoter side of it, I'm like, why would they pay more? They already get all the cars they need. They do not need to pay more. And the same thing goes. We got Speed Weeks coming up down in Florida, and the payout down there for the mods is absolutely terrible. It is terrible. But guess what? They'll get 70 of them for sure. Why? Because it's wintertime. People want to race. So that tells you right there that racers are not focused on money. They're focused on the entertainment value. They want a good track. They want a good atmosphere. They want a good crowd. They want a big stage. The money's a bonus. So overall, great show. Looking forward to it. Hopefully this COVID crap is done. I'd like to get down there next year. I was kind of looking at going this year, but I did watch a lot of it. It was a hell of a lot of fun. Hats off to those guys.